It's 9 o'clock. Good evening. Our top stories on NTV tonight.
Wrestlers of Kisumu County Assembly leadership rout takes an ugly turn.
Must have seen it. And if we had seen it, what had happened?
Invisible ivory or a case of Revenue Authority and ports officials getting blinded.
Terror threat at Parliament buildings. Suspect ordered detained for 10 days.
Tribalism abroad. Kenyans export bad manners to the United States.
It should be deleted from that association because all the members were from the same ethnic group.
NTV Tonight with Smriti Vidyarthi and Mark Masai.
Good evening. The curse of the floods is back and Narok town is underwater yet again. And from Kisumu, or rather from Narok to Kisumu, wrestling games move west and first stop, Kisumu County Assembly.
It's true, we have a comprehensive coverage of that and more. And we have full team coverage with Ken Mijungu, Brenda Wanga and Mercy Juma all in studio.
Well, first we begin in Narok, where tonight the town is, as I said, once again underwater.
Floods as a result of heavy rain swept away buildings and motor vehicles this evening as terrified residents watched. Now, it is not the first time that the town has experienced such flooding.
Well, here, as you can see, are some of the pictures taken about 2 hours ago. On your screen, a car being flooded away and another one right there. So a heavy, heavy downpour there in the county of Narok and extreme flooding. Just check that out, Mark. More than just one vehicle.
Exactly. And even if you see at the back there, the green lorry, actually tanker, being swept away by the heavy waves there. And also, of course, the roads there have been blocked, and the residents saying that at least no reports of casualties yet or anyone having been killed as a result of this flooding, but definitely a lot of destruction in the town of Narok.
Unbelievable that just a few hours of rain can cause so much havoc and cause so much damage as well. We have, of course, been experiencing rainfall here in Nairobi as well. But from Narok and Nairobi to Kisumu now, where the County Assembly Deputy Speaker Pamela Omino has been admitted to hospital after she was allegedly assaulted as she attempted to forcefully gain entry into the county chamber. Pamela was rushed to hospital by her aides and some members of the County Assembly. NTV's Oko Okusa with that drama.
Outside the Kisumu County Assembly debating chambers, an orderly rings a bell, signaling the coming of the mace. In tow is Pamela Omino, the embattled Deputy Speaker of the Kisumu County Assembly. But alas, for several minutes, Pamela convulsed on the assembly floor as orderlies made frantic efforts to revive her. Soon the entire Kisumu Assembly compound was turned into one chaotic scene. With Pamela's condition appearing to worsen, a vehicle was quickly summoned to rush her to the hospital. Before the assault, Pamela tried to block the acting Speaker Gabriel Ocheng and the mace from entering the House, maintaining that she is the bona fide Deputy Speaker and therefore ought to be the one to chair House businesses, and not Ocheng, who was elected on an acting capacity.
And as per now, I'm going to chair
However, the leader of Majority, Samuel Ong'ou, dismissed her, saying the Court of Appeal had allowed Ocheng to lead the House pending The hearing of an appeal case filed by the Assembly contesting a decision by the Employment and Labor Relations Court to reinstate Anne Adul as the Speaker of the Assembly. Adul was impeached last October on allegations of graft. Ouko Kusa, NTV, in the county of Kisumu.
And Pamela Omino, that you've seen in the last frame in the story by Oko Kusa, has been admitted receiving treatment after that drama at the Kisumu County Assembly.
All right, well, yesterday now, Thai officials seized 511 pieces of ivory weighing 3,100 kilograms.
The ivory was found in containers whose origin was Mombasa, and it was not on its way to Laos. Now, Mercy Juma joins us in this team coverage. Isn't it curious that Kenyan officials actually believed the container was carrying tea?
Yes, Mark, two things can explain why 3 tons of ivory worth billions of shillings found its way to Thailand from Mombasa. Either someone or a group of people took a hefty bribe, or a person just slept on their job and did not verify the consignment. Tonight, let's look at what really happens when one wants to export any consignment from Kenya using the port of Mombasa, especially the identity of the government agencies involved.
Like blood diamonds in Sierra Leone and minerals in Congo, ivory is the mineral which is fueling wars and terrorism. Except now it is right here at home. The ivory trade is a source of capital for a few groups who form a tight, secretive network of poachers, small and big middlemen. This latest one, of ivory from Kenya en route Laos being nabbed in Thailand, is among the biggest hauls to be discovered, and the second major consignment of ivory from Africa to be netted in Thailand in the last 7 days. For every consignment that is to be exported out of the country, there is a process set out. In Kenya, the Kenya Revenue Authority plays a central role in the export process and is involved from the beginning. First, the exporter has to contract a clearing and forwarding agency to handle the goods. Before packing the goods in a container, the agency contracted and a customs officer from KRA checks that the goods are what you, the exporter, says they are. During packing, a KRA officer must be present. The officer is the one who locks the container with a customs seal. The transporter is then allowed to take the container to the port's gate, where again, a KRA official has to give an approval for the cargo to enter the port. At the port, Kenya Ports Authority scans the cargo. If there is anything suspicious, the cargo is withheld, unloaded and re-inspected. 100% verification has to be done. If everything is okay, the container is cleared for transport. The KRA then issues a customs release and the cargo is moved to the storage area to wait for shipping. KPA staff will then load it on a ship for export. With what seems to be such a thorough process, many then wonder what really happened with the ivory in Thailand that was marked as tea from Mombasa, and also all these contraband goods that make their way into and out of Kenya. Questions that arise from the Thailand case include who cleared the goods and where did they come from?
If indeed it passes through Kenya, then somebody somewhere has to be responsible for that action. How can it get out of our borders? Was it not detected? If it was detected, what happened? If it indeed passes through Mombasa, then how? You know, there are many questions hard questions that people will ask. If indeed it passed through there, somebody must have seen it. And if he had seen it, what had happened?
Some of the ivory nabbed had marks that are made by police to show that the tusks are exhibits in criminal cases. It means part of this consignment had been seized before. Each container has a unique consignment number that can be tracked. Each has the address of the clearing agency and that of the shipping company printed, name of exporter, and name of port of departure. The unique identity of every piece of cargo that departs the Mombasa port and the elaborate process of verification that involves multiple government agencies mean that it should be fairly easy to trace the origin of the suspect ivory. It should also be easy to arrest the responsible parties. The fact that this hasn't happened raises complex questions with very simple answers. Mercy Juma, NTV.
Mercy, you've helped us map out the procedure that is followed in exporting. Is it possible that in all those ports before Thailand, everybody slept on the job?
Well, Mark, that is could be one of the probable reasons that anybody can give. But then I talked to some of the officials, some of them from KWS, and they say now for this case, it might be very hard to convince somebody that this is a case of negligence. The most probable reason then will be that money went round, people received bribes, basically coming back to corruption. And then we now ask questions about what happened between Kenya or Mombasa and Thailand, all these ports involved in between. It means there were people still in between who knew what was going on. And a Kenya Ports Authority official also told me that two things happen at the port. Either 50% verification is done or 100% verification is done. When 50% verification is done on a cargo, then this is usually for people who maybe are used to transporting things, and the KP authorities know that these people maybe export tea. So maybe this one was one of the people who are used to exporting tea, and there was no questions to be raised as to what they were carrying. But then the officials in Thailand also say that they are doing intelligence and they are going to tell us what they find out. But if we find out any information from them, then we also ask ourselves, then what happens? Because in Kenya we have cases of we get the information, we get names of people, but then no prosecution is done. So then we just have to wait and see.
Right, Mercy, thanks very much indeed. Of course, that really must be followed. We'll be keeping an eye on that story for sure. Well, conservationists now want relevant government authorities to investigate and take stern action against those behind the more than 3 tons of ivory seized in Thailand this weekend.
The African Network for Animal Welfare is demanding answers concerning the ivory which was shipped from the port of Mombasa, marked as tea.
Peter Mwangangi reports.
Speaking on the sidelines of the 4th National Judicial Dialogue on Environment and Wildlife Crimes in Kwale County, participants wondered how over 500 pieces of ivory made their way past the Mombasa port undetected, only for the items worth 5.4 billion shillings to be netted in Thailand on Saturday. It is estimated that more than 200 elephants were killed to extract the tusks.
If it's people who have been compromised, I think let's ensure that whoever is responsible, then, they are actually held into account.
Judges who are also attending the conference say other arms of the government must play their part, considering Kenya recently passed one of the most punitive wildlife acts in Africa.
The ivory seizure in Bangkok, Thailand, is an indictment of failure on systems on this end. People who were supposed to check containers did not check, or people who are to verify the contents did not do so. We cannot rule out corruption.
The African Network for Animal Welfare notes that unless a robust network drawing membership from all law enforcement agencies is effected, Kenya could lose all its elephants and rhinos before the year 2030.
As Kenyans, we need to change attitude and see wildlife as and particularly elephants and rhinos. This is our heritage.
The illegal trade has also affected aquatic wildlife, with people taking advantage of the whopping 90% of Kenya's marine areas which are not marked as protected areas.
Utakuta watu wengi katika jamii bado wako na ile kasumba ya kuwa wakimwona kasa katika bahari, kwa wao ni nyama ya kula. Lakini sheria nazo zinasema ya kuwa ni hatia kumla kasa.
We have the dynamite fishing in the south coast between Kenya and Tanzania, and that one we are trying to address at the moment. Our warden for Kisite Mpunguti Marine National Reserve has his rangers, and they're constantly patrolling, and we've even enlisted the support of local communities.
Environmentalists say that eventually the war on poaching must be fought by Kenyans from all walks of life by ensuring that they report illegal activities to the authorities, who are in turn expected to take legal action against the offenders. Peter Mwangangi, NTV, Mombasa.
From those efforts against ivory smuggling to efforts against terror threats. A Nairobi court has allowed police 10 days to continue holding in custody an employee of the Senate linked to a planned terror attack in Parliament.
Although he did not appear in court, prosecution made an application to detain Ali Abdul Majid Ahmed for 20 days pending investigations.
Meanwhile, security has been tightened in the areas highlighted in an intelligence report that mentioned Abdul Majid.
Ali Abdul Majid Ahmed, the Senate employee arrested on suspicion of aiding a planned terror attack at Parliament buildings, will be held at the Kilimani police station for the next 10 days to allow anti-terrorism police investigate the allegations against him. Abdul Majid was arrested on Sunday night at Pangani area following intelligence reports that he had supposedly been assigned to survey Parliament and plant bombs for an impending terror attack. The intelligence report contained in a letter by Nairobi Central OCPD Paul Wanjama to Parliament Police Station OCS Samson Chelugo has seen Parliament beef up its security in the event of any such attempt. Individuals and vehicles coming into Parliament must undergo a thorough security check, with each one required to show their national identification card to be allowed access. More security officers have been deployed to patrol the compound. Other targeted areas mentioned include Muthurwa Market, Nairobi Pentecostal Churches, Holy Family Basilica, St. Andrew's PCEA Church, and the University of Nairobi. With no comment on the said letter, Director of Criminal Investigations Negwe Muhoro has sounded a warning to those sharing false information on impending attacks, saying police are investigating the sources of the alerts and will soon make arrests.
There's no need of sending panics, possibly just for good measures. We cannot just start, texting alerts and saying ABCD. We need to have that kind of. Otherwise, we'll be causing panic unnecessarily and despondency. We won't really avoid to do that.
A number of terror suspects have so far been arraigned in the renewed fight against terrorism. Mohamud Hassan Mamo, a public health officer in Mandera County, will be detained for 2 days on suspicion of involvement in the deadly Mandera bus attack late last year. Mohamud Sagar, a Garissa businessman, will also remain in police custody pending investigation on allegations that he was involved in financing the Garissa University attack, where 148 people died. Ashley Mungina, NTV.
Well, still on terrorism, a new report now says that the threat of terrorism is exposing Kenyan journalists to increased dangers.
The report released at the United Nations headquarters earlier today further indicates that reporters are at risk of becoming victims of violence in their coverage of terrorist organizations such as Al-Shabaab.
Trevor Ombija reports with the details.
A painful walk inflicted by GSU officers in Tana River County. The journalist's fault was covering a story on seizure of more than 200 cattle by GSU officers.
They came with protesters and entered in the bottom of the cattle, where they did not enter by themselves. They came with a view of rescuing the cows. So that is how they got into the problem.
They saw the tags, we were wearing tags. We had cameras, they didn't even ask. The vehicle itself had a green number plate, implying that it was a government vehicle. They never even inquired who was there, what we were doing.
A separate statement issued last week by the Committee to Protect Journalists reads in part that the two were simply doing their jobs and Kenyan police must not be allowed to attack journalists with impunity.
There is no room here for absolute freedom of the press. There is no room here for a freedom of the press that does not come with an equal challenge for the media to be responsible.
And then there is the issue of covering terror threats and terrorism-related activities. Some local journalists were allegedly questioned by anti-terror police over an expose that showed loopholes in the security system at the GSU headquarters.
We are not targeting anybody. We have not arrested anybody.
Why are they being questioned?
Allow me not to comment on that.
But the Kenyan media are apparently much less restricted than news organizations in some other East African countries. Eritrea tops the list of the world's 10 most censored countries, and Ethiopia is ranked as the 4th most repressive state for journalists.
Trevor Ombija, NTV. Back to our team coverage with Brenda, Ken Mijungu and Mercy Juma. Now, the cancer that is tribalism in the country has now permeated Kenyan communities residing abroad. Brenda, you've been following this story, and we're talking about Kenyans exporting bad manners. What's this about?
Yes, indeed, Mark, and it seems it is proving very hard to take the village out of the Kenyan man and woman. A recent meeting in the United States has people both here and in the diaspora angered by what has been seen as a blatant display of tribalism. I spoke to Kenya's former ambassador to that country, Dennis Afande, who says that this is sadly the norm rather than the exception. Had the president's aborted trip materialized, he probably would have been caught in the middle of a controversy occasioned by the choice of speakers at a Kenyans in the diaspora event he was scheduled to have attended. The composition of the panel organizing and speaking at that event has stirred emotions, reason being all of them were from the same ethnic community. A social media user says, "I found it embarrassing watching the government called out by a Kenyan in diaspora for what many saw as shameful tribalism." He goes on to say, "Diaspora must embrace diversity and be a guide to the motherland on what makes up the fabric of Kenya." Indeed, the display of exported tribalism isn't something new. Kenyans living in various states and cities of the USA make up for amongst the largest population of immigrants there. Dennis Afande, who served there as the country's envoy, says things have changed and for the worse now. Back then, it wasn't like this.
Kenyans in diaspora in the United States, I traveled a lot where in the country, met a group of them or groups of them, and all the time they work together as a team, regardless of their tribal background. I realized that Kenyans, they are well informed, and I think they are more or less, as it were, working together at that time as Kenyans, which I was proud of them when I was in the United States.
The only instance he encountered tribalism was once when university students formed a Kenyan association, but whose leadership and membership was drawn from one ethnic community.
So I told them that, to me, that name Kenya, it should be deleted from that association because all the members were from the same ethnic group. And I told them that you cannot call it a Kenyan association, student association, if it does not portray the national image of Kenya.
Last week's incident and the reactions to it, especially from those in attendance who strongly opposed the move to have just one community speak for the rest of Kenyans there, could be an indication that things are now slowly but surely on the mend for the better. Brenda Wanga, NTV.
Well, Brenda, one may argue it's a little bit sad, and ironically, these are Kenyans who many expect to know better, perhaps, I guess, by virtue of their exposure.
Yes, indeed, Simrita. These are people who've left Kenya, traveled abroad, they've interacted with people from different ethnicities, different countries. So you would expect that some of these habits that probably they picked back home here, Kenya, where many of us like to identify by our tribes and ethnicity, perhaps would have been washed away by the time they have spent there and the exposure they have had there. But also many Kenyans abroad and here are blaming the leadership, the Kenyan leadership in this country, saying that they should indeed be leading by example. And most of them say that in these offices there, in the consulates there, the same problem of tribalism still manifests. And this is something that some of them say want to see changed. And by going by the story that we just saw, many of them are slowly saying that this is something that must change for the better of the country.
All right, thanks very much, Brenda. Well, old habits indeed die hard, and it is the same with appointments.
That's true, Smriti. A day after the president's controversial appointments to some parastatals, his deputy, William Ruto, is asking Kenyans to be more tolerant with each other. Kemi Jung, you're following this story. Any other reactions to the appointments?
Well, as expected, Mark, the appointments have elicited mixed reactions from a cross-section of Kenyans, with those in support and those against the president split right in the middle. Looking through the list, one easily finds some names that are forming the basis of that loud disquiet. It was to be expected. His list of not-so-fresh appointees will not go down well with many. To some, President Uhuru Kenyatta is offering no alternative but an attitude of take it or leave it. His deputy William Ruto thinks Kenyans are too harsh on themselves.
And that we will find it in ourselves to appreciate those who don't belong to our political persuasion, to look kindly at those who belong to other communities. I think that realization will make us build more bridges and build a much more cohesive and united nation.
Most of these names are not new in the political, business, corporate or government. The opposition chord is firmly on the side of those unhappy.
What I hate is if somebody wants to make it political, that you want to gain mileage.
I saw in the media some purported appointments of even board members. And I would urge those people who are supposed to have been appointed that they should talk to the president, to talk to the PSS relevant to make it done properly.
From the young to the old, this list continues to elicit mixed reaction, and one name that keeps popping up in every conversation is that for the retired Army General Marsden Madoka, who now replaces Danson Mugatana at the Port Authority, someone relatively much younger than him, raising the question, is the president really committed to empowering young people? But there are young people on the list. Charles Njagua, popularly known as Jaguar, a musician and a budding businessman whose wealth amassing prowess baffles many, will be sitting on the Nakada board as an anti-drug abuse crusader. The president also did more than balance regional interest. While his list may pass as cutting across the political divide, it's also the recycling of politicians sent to oblivion in the last general election. Omingo Magara, Musikari Kombo, Soita Shitanda, Samuel Pogisho, Musa Sirma, Kalembe Ndile, Julius Sunkuli, who left his ambassador position in Beijing, China, to contest for an elective seat and lost, Wavinya Ndeti and Taib Ali Taib are the others.
And to be patient with those who are not in our camp or our group.
The president is also seen to be strengthening his political alliances ahead of the 2017 election. This he has done by accommodating to a larger extent the regions that traditionally and in the last election voted for the opposition. Then there is the question of political rewards to those who have stuck with him along his journey to presidency. Some who lost elections, others who supported his bid. But this is not the only time the president has done this. His cabinet is made up of political allies, friends and former colleagues, some he worked with at the Treasury and as the Deputy Prime Minister. Ken Mijungu, NTV.
All right, well, Ken, some may argue that parastatal boards perhaps need some wisdom, and hence the reason for appointing retired or even rejected politicians.
Yes, Mary, it looks like a perfect blend until you read through, and obviously you find the devil in the details. And, you know, it comes back to the question of who are these people who have been appointed, and you find that justification of the kind of people that the president has appointed: political rejects, friends, you know, people he's been with throughout his journey as president to presidency, and the people he worked with at Treasury as the Minister for Finance, and of course you also find during his time as the Deputy Prime Minister. And you answer that question, the reason why he had to bring young men and old men together. To some people, this is a perfect justification.
All right, Ken, thanks very much. We'll just have to see how that goes, I suppose. Ken Mijungu, Brenda Wanga and Mercy Juma, thanks very much for joining us on Team Coverage tonight.
And at this point, we'll welcome your opinion on our focus tonight. And we ask, do you support yesterday's parastatal appointment by President Kenyatta? You can use the hashtag #KaziKwaWazee on Twitter, and we'll share your responses at the end of this broadcast.
That's right. You can also tweet us at Smriti Vidyarthi or at Mark Masai, or of course at NTV Kenya. Let's just take you back to those floods in the county of, in Narok town, that is, and the entire place pretty much is underwater. Have a look at some of these pictures. Raging water after a heavy downpour. Earlier we saw some cars being swept away. Here you can see areas pretty much impassable.
It's actually one of the canters that was swept away by the heavy flooding within Narok town. Of course, over the years, the excuse has been that this town has been placed or positioned topographically in a bad area because it is within a valley. But this is something the administration has to look at because it keeps recurring every time there is a heavy downpour. There's a lot of destruction, and of course this is the remains that you see here when it decides to rain heavy. And of course we have been told at this point no deaths have been or casualties have been reported from this particular downpour, but plenty of destruction.
Yeah, well, when it rains, it pours, they say, and that's certainly what's been happening not only in Narok, but also in Nairobi, and I'm sure elsewhere as well. Just make sure you exercise caution when you're on the road, whether you're a motorist or, of course, a pedestrian.
A lot of questions there to the administration, which is a precursor to this next story. 2 years after devolution became a reality, Kenyans have been asking which is the best performing county.
Well, in which counties are you likely to find the happiest people? And what are the things that make Wananchi happy in these regions?
Does money make people happy, or are there other more important factors? Now, the answers to these questions can be answered.
That's right. The Daily Nation has commissioned a survey in which Wananchi were asked to rank their counties. Now, the answers they gave are startling.
To find out whether your county is among the 15 that were ranked among the best performing in transport, roads, agriculture, health and education, get your copy of the Daily Nation tomorrow.
We're taking a break on NTV Tonight. Let's just bring you a quick reminder, though, of our opinion count question. Do you support the parastatal appointments by President Uhuru Kenyatta? Do send us a tweet. Here's what's coming up in the bulletin.
I want to know that assessor will arrive at the same standard that you would have arrived at.
Standards and stars. Classification of tourism facilities begins next month.
Missing teachers and missed classes. Northern Kenya students' extra burden on tonight's learning curve. Hi there, thanks for staying with us on NTV Tonight. Now, the Auditor General has cleared the Narok County government of any malpractice in the collection of revenue from the Masai Mara Game Reserve.
The report presented to the Senate Finance Committee looking into the award of the contract to Kenya Airport Parking Services, that is CAPS, to collect the revenue, even paints a picture of increased revenue collection under CAPS.
The award of the tender to CAPS has divided the Narok County leadership, with Governor Samuel Ole Tunai and Senator Stephen Ole Ntutu pulling in different directions over the matter.
The faint cloud of dust raised by the wildebeest stomping into the Mara River in a relentless sequence of life and death, almost a reflection of the dust raised by the sequence of questions raised about the billions of shillings generated from this resource, an allure that pales in the shadow of a tussle over the revenue collection and expenditure. These questions that the Auditor General was going to provide answers to, with a full audit of the company contracted to collect revenue at the reserve on behalf of the county government of Narok, that is the Kenya Airport Parking Service CAPS, how they got the contract to collect the revenue and what happens to the funds after they collect them. CAPS has been cleared, and so has the county government of Narok.
We did an analysis of the different regimes. Equity Bank being the pioneer, a period that it defaulted into a manual collection system, and then it was inherited by CAPS. And over those periods, which are 3 physical years, on similar apples-to-apples comparison, CAPS obviously did a better collection.
You are saying that revenue collection for both sides of the park, you haven't seen any discrepancies, any revenue is missing, any revenue is not accounted for.
Money was being collected and stolen. In your audit, did you find any of this?
The collections that are done by CAPS are remitted to the county government, and therefore there's obviously nothing that is going to be different. And we went ahead and did a system review of the database of all the collections within CAPS itself, and did not anything to report, so it was in line.
The findings are now in the hands of a Senate Committee on Finance that is also looking into the matter. The collection of the Mara billions has divided the county's leadership right down the middle, with one faction led by Narok Senator Stephen Ole Ntutu saying that the award of the contract was flawed and should be cancelled. Allegations of corruption and mismanagement of these funds levelled against Governor Samuel Ole Tunai had sparked street protests, some which saw 5 Narok leaders arrested, then released.
We are relying on the Auditor General to tell us categorically, watu wanaiba pesa. So story yote English nzuri. I want to know, pesa inaibwa ama hapana?
Sometimes it's about that information being out in the public limelight for people to get to appreciate. And that's the basis of us making that strong recommendation that CAPS should report on a weekly basis all this data, because by the time it's out there, all the citizens are going to appreciate this evidence.
The Senate Committee will be digging through the Auditor General's report, combine that with their own findings of the investigations into the disquiet in Narok, then present a report before the Senate. Sheila Sendeo, NTV.
Now, the Public Accounts Committee has a new chairman, and he comes in the form of Rarieda Member of Parliament Nicholas Gumbo. A surprise winner, Gumbo beat fellow ODM MPs John Mbadi, Abdikadir Aden and Andrew Mwandime. Well, it has, however, emerged that Gumbo may not have been Court's preferred candidate to chair the powerful Watchdog Committee. And Rochieng with the details.
At midday, and the Public Accounts Committee in a closed-door session had elected their chairman. Nicholas Gumbo will replace Ababu Namwamba as the head of the Watchdog Committee. Gumbo had defeated his party chairman John Mbadi by 3 votes, garnering 12 to Mbadi's 9. He was magnanimous in his victory, insisting that while there will be different views in the committee, it will have to stick together as a team.
As the new leadership of the committee, we are going to try what is humanly possible to bring back the reputation of the committee.
Kipkelion West MP Jackson Rupp is the new vice chairman of the committee. Yet Gumbo's victory is as surprising as it is interesting. Apparently, CORD's preferred choice was Mbadi. The Suba MP blamed the Jubilee majority in the committee for locking him out of the top seat.
Unfortunately, the way our standing orders are structured, it gives the responsibility of electing chair of a watchdog committee even to those members of parliament who come from the government side.
However, he says he has no problem with the Gumbo and indeed will support him in the role.
When it comes to confidence, CORD has confidence in me. But you know, some of us who are also very highly opinionated are never liked by people who are on the competing side.
The committee was freshly reconstituted after the old one, led by Namwamba, was disbanded over allegations of corruption. 5 of the members of the previous body had also been barred from being members of the new committee.
We are not bringing anything special. Each of these members here have got their own expertise. We have pledged teamwork. We have pledged accommodation for each other. We have pledged respect for each other. and that is what is going to guide this committee.
The committee says it will meet on Thursday to plan on how it will carry out its activities. The committee has gotten a fresh lease of life, not just with the new leadership, but also with several new members as well. The task for it now is for it to redeem its image and get away from that perception of corruption that has dogged it for quite some time. Andrew Ochieng, NTV.
From the PAC elections to concerns over the Burundi upcoming elections, police fired tear gas to disperse hundreds of people protesting in the outskirts of Burundi's capital against President Pierre Nkurunziza's decision to run for a third term. Nkurunziza's announcement on Saturday that he would run in the June 26th elections has triggered the worst political crisis in Burundi. For a third day, protesters erected barricades and burned tires. They accused the president of breaking the two-term limit set out in the constitution and the Arusha peace agreement that ended the 12-year-long civil war. On Monday, police raided and shut down the Radio Broadcasters Association studio and closed private radio stations RPA for broadcasting live on the protests. 2 other stations had already been stopped from broadcasting in the countryside where much of Nkurunziza's popular support is based.
Good evening and welcome to NTV Business. I'm Dan Mwangi. The long-awaited classification of tourism facilities in the country is set to begin on the 4th of May, with facilities in the Western Kenya Tourism Circuit being the first to be assessed. Out of 92 hospitality establishments that self-assessed with a view to qualify for the classification, 52 are pre-qualified by the Standardization and Classification Committee for Classification and Grading.
Talks on the classification of hospitality facilities in East Africa started way back in the year 2000. It was not until 2006 that the East African Communities Council of Ministers signed the EAC Regional Classification Scheme that effectively superseded all national classification criteria in the 5 EAC partner states. In Kenya, the EAC classification standards criteria became legally binding in September last year, when the Tourism Cabinet Secretary published the Tourism Regulatory Authority or TRA Regulations 2014. The TRA subsequently established the Standardization and Classification Committee to oversee the classification process, which will commence on the 4th of May in the Nyanza, Western and North Rift tourism circuits.
Because if we carry out this first part, then I think very successfully, then it will be easy for us now to get to the big boys. I know the big boys are the sides of Mombasa and Nairobi and so forth. So the rest of the country will have confidence in what you're doing.
The TRA has been tasked with ensuring that the standards of hotel facilities in Kenya are up to international standards.
The industry has to have confidence in you, in the work you're doing. I have been told there have been problems before, when there was an attempt to do this. And you don't want to lose that confidence from the industry players themselves.
19 assessors have so far been trained to carry out the certification and grading. The Tourism CS plans to have an assessor from a different East African state join the trained Kenyan assessors in order to foster the uniformity of the classification process.
The most important thing is, should we get a complaint from anywhere, from any hotel, if we brought assessors from Tanzania, for example, or Rwanda, I want you to assure me that that assessor will arrive at the same standard that you would have arrived at.
The classification and grading will run up to the 13th of June. The outcome of the classification exercise shall be published in the Kenya Gazette within 60 days of completion of the classification process as required by law.
Good team here, and I'm sure they won't let you down.
Alex Mwangi, NTV Business.
Small-scale businesses, along the Northern Corridor are expected to benefit a great deal should the roadside service stations launched today come to fruition. These service stations will be located on major stopovers along the highway from Mombasa to Bujumbura. The corridor, which is more than 1,500 kilometers long, will see hotels, medical facilities and other social amenities established in towns. This will give the often neglected drivers a chance to receive adequate rest and speedy help in case of road accidents. Truck owners are also invited to set up offices in these towns, a move that will improve cargo monitoring. The first phase of the project is expected to begin at Sultan Hamoud in Kenya. The government has invited counties along these towns to make hay and use these service stations for income generation.
we intend to embrace this initiative as a priority infrastructure component in developing transport services and transport corridors to international standards. There is therefore need to integrate RSS concept in our transport infrastructure investment programs.
As we discuss roadside stations and building infrastructure in the Northern Corridor, our focus will be to use this road infrastructure that we are developing to bring in raw materials and take out finished products.
12 finalists of Business Daily is the next big thing entrepreneurs competition gathered today at Strathmore University to pitch their ideas to potential investors. The forum is in its 4th edition this year, and TV's Laban Cliff-Onserio was there.
Thank you, Vivian. Okay.
The stage for 2015's Next Big Thing Entrepreneurs Showcase was set at Strathmore University. 12 entrepreneurs made it to this year's shortlist after outwitting thousands of other contestants. One by one, they took to the stage.
I'm an agriculture professional.
The young entrepreneurs were battling it out for an opportunity to receive mentorship, support and investment.
That's why we thought of bringing this side, which has capital, and this side that has ideas together. Because tell you what, even those big companies like I talked about Facebook, became what they were because of what they call angel investors. People who supported ideas because of ideas that they thought were competitive and that could become what they are today.
Jamii Telcom CEO Joshua Chepkoni, who was a chief guest at the event, asserted that the solution to joblessness among Kenya's youth hinged on innovation.
My question is that I want to build my country. I could have settled in the United States and get good jobs in Britain and so forth, but no, I say no. I must build my dream in my own country, because at the end of it is that this is where I think that is why you have to sacrifice. Even in any business you want to do, you've got to sacrifice. You are going to sacrifice your belief, and you know you've got to combine both the mind and the art for you to succeed. And when I talk about the heart in business, is passion.
The event had its fair share of humor too.
How will it tell the difference between a driver who is drunk and a passenger who is sitting next to the driver?
For us, it better notifies you that there is drunkenness around the driver rather than the accidents.
The Climate Innovation Center has pledged to incubate the businesses, while the Nation Media Group pledged a $3,000 award in media coverage. The innovations presented will be published in Business Daily on the 8th of May. Laban Cliff-Onserio, NTV Business.
And we can see
now, yesterday we began our series of Labor Day related features as 1st May approaches with a look at the minimum wage. Now today the focus is on the agriculture sector. Zena Bonati looks at the sector as the biggest employer of the country's labor force and the challenges and opportunities that the workforce faces.
Agriculture is the backbone of Kenya's economy, a point that has possibly been beaten to death 1,000,000 times over. But as cliché as it may be, truth oozes from this very statement, considering that a majority of Kenyans earn their living from agriculture. The official government figure of the number of people working in the sector is 70%, with tea and horticulture industries absorbing the bulk of the labor force.
If in certain countries the rural population, the people involved in agriculture, is 60% or 70%, then we have shortage. We have shortage in what? We have shortage in doctors. We have shortage in nurses, we have shortage in teachers, we have shortage in engineers. A modern country cannot sustain an agricultural sector of 60 or 70 or 75%.
In Kenya's case, it doesn't quite work like that. There's no shortage of labor in other sectors. In fact, there are very many people but very few available jobs. Agriculture is often viewed as a dirty job for poor people and those who didn't do well academically, and this part explains why young people do not aspire to work in agriculture. But with the shortage of employment opportunities, agriculture is becoming the job of last resort. Never mind that most of these people lack the necessary skills to grow the sector.
Actually, farming needs trained, skilled people.
A challenge that comes with unskilled labor is that mechanizing becomes difficult, as it requires retraining of the personnel, which can take a long time.
You know, when you look at the smallholder farmer with this hoe in the farm,
it's not attractive. But if you go to other countries where they've taken agriculture seriously, you find, agriculture is mechanized. Yeah, it is sophisticated.
In Israel, 3% of the population are involved in agriculture. 3%.
Most agricultural activities are concentrated around the rural areas, largely small-scale, with the county of Nyandarua recording the highest number of its people engaged in small-scale agriculture at 58%. The Socioeconomic Atlas of Kenya puts the total number of Kenyans employed in small-scale agriculture at 14.2 million of the country's total labor force. The actual numbers are likely to be much more than that because there's a significant percentage of the total labor force that is involved in agriculture but is undocumented because for them, agriculture is just something they do on the side. Even as the country seeks to ensure food security, the notion is not matched by action. The government itself is employing very few people in support services.
Agriculture, there is no quick job as such. The government is not employing extension.
The bigger picture of formal employment in agriculture is an interesting one. The Economic Survey of 2014 reports that the private sector employed 303,800 people in agriculture in 2013. The public sector, on the other hand, employed just 42,900 in the same year. This means, in effect, that most employment in agriculture is informal, insecure, and one whose productivity is difficult to measure. And as the demand to mechanize and otherwise raise the productivity of agriculture increases, the land will have less and less capacity to absorb low-skilled labor, which means that the country is sitting on a potential labor time bomb. Zainab, Wandati, NTV.
And students from the northern part of the country are lagging behind the syllabus after their teachers refused to resume teaching duties in the region due to terror attacks that saw some of their colleagues getting killed.
Well, despite this, the pupils and students in that region will be expected to sit for the same national examinations at the end of the year.
Well, NTV's Sharon Baranga engages education stakeholders on the ramifications of the missed classes on this week's Learning Curve.
In just under 3 months, Duke Nyamongo has established himself as a firm favorite with customers seeking quality second-hand clothes. It is a job he has taken to with zeal and determination, even though this isn't really his profession. Duke Nyamongo has been a teacher at Halalio Boys in Mandera East for 5 years. He has been teaching Kiswahili and geography, and like some of his colleagues, he has decided that he is not going back to Northeastern. Duke, maybe you can tell us how business is doing.
Biashara iko sawa. Tumekosa mishahara for the last 3 months. We have been surviving on this business kidogo ya hapa na pale. Ni mia. Uko na ngapi kwani?
His change in profession occasioned by the insecurity time bomb that exploded with the 2 terror attacks in Mandera that left close to 60 people killed, amongst them 20 teachers. Duke, alongside other teachers, fled for their lives and haven't been back despite threats and orders from the government.
President wetu alisema security starts with you. So hiyo security imeanza na mimi, that's why niko hapa kufanya biashara. Nichunge familia yangu.
The refusal by the teachers to return to their stations has adversely affected learning in many of the region's schools.
It's a crisis already, and I'm shocked that the government has not declared a crisis, that so many hundreds of thousands of learners are actually in schools unattended.
The government tried to force the teachers back to the north, but they refused, demanding transfers to other schools across the country.
You can't actually argue that it's a failure of the Ministry of Education. It's not even a failure of the Teacher Service Commission that is supposed to ensure that there's a teacher resource in school at any one given time. And I think this problem is now, it's a national problem.
The real object, education, one of the most critical sectors for the nation's development, is often affected whenever there is conflict. And for this marginalized area, this disruption is a double tragedy.
I'm worried especially about those candidates out there who have got very little contact hours with teachers, because it has been reported that in some schools there are only 2 teachers.
This insecurity challenge has effectively denied pupils and students one of their fundamental rights, education, and the effects on this region are likely to be felt many months, if not years, down the line. In the immediate future, those preparing for their national examinations later this year will be particularly affected.
It's fraudulent to administer an examination to children that have not covered the syllabus and is not for a mistake of their own.
Most teachers assert that they are not going back to the northern part of the country. Learning institutions in these areas continue to bear the brunt of terrorism and insecurity. Learning at Garissa University College and the Garissa Medical Institute has been halted, while several schools in Lamu are also without teachers who have fled fearing for their safety. Sharon Baranga, NTV for the Learning Curve.
Welcome back to NTV Sport. Now, London Marathon winner Eliud Kipchoge relishes an Olympic gold and is ready to give the Rio 2016 Games a shot, this time as a marathon runner. Kipchoge, who prior to the race was not considered as a top contender in London, stated that he approached it as an individual runner and not to former champ Wilson Kipsang and world marathon record holder Dennis Kimeto. 2 times London Marathon champion Kipsang, on the other hand, admitted that he was under intense pressure to retain his title and now focuses on the World Championship that will be held in August in Beijing, China.
What lacks in my credentials is Olympic gold medal, because already I have a World Championships gold medal.
I want to congratulate my friend Eliud for his win, because for sure it was a very tough race, and for somebody like him to win in such a very tough and strong field, he must have really prepared himself very well, and it was his day.
Tulifanya tuliweza, ingawa maybe baridi ndio ilitusumbua kidogo kwa sababu ilikuwa baridi sana.
Members of the National Youth Athletics team say they are ready for the World Championships. The team was treated to a hero's welcome from Mauritius for the just concluded African Championship, where they broke 4 records. The team will have a few days rest before resuming training camp for the World Championships.
The young athletes flew the Kenyan flag high at the 2nd edition of the Africa Athletics Youth Championship in Mauritius. The champions, who brought home 19 medals, 8 gold, 9 silver and 2 bronze, finished second behind South Africa, who picked 29 medals. Sandra Chabet came in first in the women's 2,000 meters steeplechase, setting a new African record of 6 minutes 20.47 seconds, with Emily Chabet breaking the record in the women's 3,000 meters in a time of 9 minutes 10.57 seconds. Davis Kiplangat broke the men's 3,000 meters category in 7 minutes 57.29 seconds. Vincent Kipyegon won the men's 2,000 meters steeplechase, writing a new record of 5 minutes 37.5 seconds. Taki Kumaru and Brimin Kiprono won gold and silver respectively in the men's 1,500 meters event.
Tuliona watu wa kwanza wenye walikimbia 3,000 meters flat ladies, vile walikimbia waliperform mzuri. Sasa hapo watu wakapata morale ya kukimbia vizuri. Tunaomba tu hii team isi wasichange, ikae tu vile iko.
Tumekuwa tayari kabisa sasa tuko na morale sana ya juu, because tumefanya vyema huko. Sasa tumekuja na medalist 18 na tuko sawa sasa kabisa. Hata sasa tunaingia Colombia, tunaenda kuleta mingi sana.
Athletics Kenya has confidence in the team and will not conduct fresh trials ahead of the World Youth Championship.
Musipeleke watoto wenye Riruta na musipeleke Keringet. Mujunge watoto hao. Hao ndio taenda Colombia mwezi wa 8. Na wakitoka hapo wataenda Olympics 2016. Huko wapi? Rio. These are the future. This is our future of athletics Kenya.
We are now even developing people from all events. For the first time, we got a gold medal in triple jump. This is fantastic. And I'm sure if we continue like that, we'll make a good results come Colombia, the Youth World Championship.
The team enters camp next week. The AK chairman used the reception to warn parents against what he termed as dubious training centers.
Kuna wakora sasa katikati hapa anangojea. Akitoka hapa nashika na ambe mimi ni coach, mimi ni agent, mimi sijui nini, anaenda na mtoto yako. Na wewe nakubali kwamba mtoto yako anaenda na mtu ambao umjui.
After an excellent show dominating the middle and long distance races, for now the victors take time to save on their achievements as there won't be much time to rest before preparations for the World Youth Championship set for Colombia begin. Brian Otual, NTV Sport.
The Kenyan Premier League continues tomorrow with Sofapaka taking on KCB. And as the players take to the pitch, there is a pledge to reward excellence. One Kenyan Premier League footballer picked by sports journalists will be 50,000 shillings richer every month, starting this month. Details in our local sports roundup.
Week 9 of the Kenyan Premier League continues Wednesday at the Kenyatta Stadium in Machakos. Hosts Sofapaka, who are runners-up last season, but who currently lies 7th on the log, welcome third from bottom KCB, looking to kickstart the lackluster season. Still on the KPL, the Player of the Month award, sponsored by sports betting company SportsPesa and administered by the Sports Journalists Association of Kenya, has been launched. Apart from a 50,000 cash award, the Best Player Monthly will also get a personalized trophy and a 42-inch smart TV. The selecting panel will consist of Kenyan sports journalists who will select the winner based on his overall performance in his team in a given month.
Particularly at this time that some of our clubs are faced with go-slows on arising from financial challenges. Just that motivation of one player motivates all the players because they will be going for that.
On to rallying, and 48 drivers are expected to rev off in the Kenya Motorsports Club organized Kajiado Rally this Saturday. Spectator stages will be at Konza and the Portland Cement Quarry, where the prize giving will also be held. KNRC current leader Jasprit Chate, fresh from his Safari Rally win, will battle it out with the flying Finn Tapio Laukunen, with experienced Baldev Chaga, Carl Flash Tundo and Alster Kavina also in contention. An interesting addition to the Kajiado Rally will be Safari Rally legend Japanese Kenjiro Shinozuka being the rally control.
This truly will be an exciting weekend. So as a rally enthusiast, I can only wait to see what happens this weekend.
The route is challenging. If it rains, it will become even more interesting. Yeah, it's very fast in some areas. But
Interesting fight, the fight of the century, so it is being termed. And that's how I wrap up NTV Sport, guys. And I'll leave you guys to carry on with the business.
What's your prediction for that game?
It's going to be a hard one. They're both heading to retirement. And I won't put my money on the moneymaker. I'll put my money on Pacquiao.
All right.
Yeah, Manny Pacquiao. He can pack a punch, so I'm behind him as well.
So can I, remember. Anyway, that's where we leave it on NTV tonight. Watson, thanks very much. I'm Smriti Vidyarthi Mohindra. Good night.
And I'm Mark Masai. Have yourself a good night.
I'm Watson Karuma. Have a good night.